Welcome to History of Geo Part 2. If you haven't seen Part 1, it'll be linked in the description below. I know I hate having to split these in parts, but it's done for copyright reasons. If you want to see the whole thing uncut, then it'll be available on my Patreon, also linked below. So with that being said, let's continue.
Weird dream.
Around this time, we usually get something like a special, but for now we just have Shinobi. We're also getting back to the status quo since Omagio told Sogo to get more ride watches. Seems odd to go back to the first arc story, but at least Sogo says it's so he can face Omagio eventually and reach his power. We start in a training room with Conrider G3, then it gets attacked by another Agito, which means this is also where we finally get to learn about Tsukuyomi. We don't know anything about her besides having amnesia. Tsukuyomi isn't even her real name. She doesn't know what it is. During their encounter with another Agito, it starts to create another Agito, since Agitos are just a single entity. A long story, watch History of Agito. The another Agitos attack Omuro, who's part of Metro PD and one of the Agito cameos. Then Tsukuyomi protects them by stopping time, which she wasn't sure she was able to do in the first place. What a coincidence she starts getting time tracker powers after we're told we don't know who she is. Sogo Googles Agito, leading him to the Agito restaurant, where we meet Mana, one of the best characters in Agito. She was one of the main cast and had wonderful stories with Shuichi. For me, Mana had a ton of well-deserved praises. She had strong focus, making her one of my favorite characters in the show. I'd even argue she was more important than certain writers. Gosh, it's so good to see her again. This is her only scene in this episode. Swartz basically confirms Tsukuyomi as a time jacker, but won't say much more than that. Probably because there isn't much more than that. Much like in the Ryuki arc, we have a previous Legend Writers theme parallel one of our main cast. Shuichi talks to Tsukuyomi, saying he had amnesia at one point. Again, watch History of Agito. So he's very understanding of her situation. She'll be okay, as long as she believes in her friends. With all the Tsukuyomi focus, you'd expect her to get something cool like a writer form maybe? Nah. But at least we get Shuichi becoming Agito Trinity with Geo Episode 33. Is that Tekken? In a Hibiki episode? And it's Sogo's birthday? I'm whatever about the last part, but this is the Hibiki tribute! Oh my gosh, remember in Kamen Rider Decade when their Hibiki arc was one of the best pair of episodes in that season? And Gio's been really good at bringing back actors, so does this mean... Kyosuke Kiriya? The worst part of Hibiki? Yeah, you've probably figured it out by now. I say one thing and it turns out to be another. Since I sounded so happy here and I hate Kiriya, that means the Hibiki tribute is great, right? Unfortunately, yes, that's right. You'd think I hate this because Kiriya takes up the mantle of Hibiki, the exact opposite thing I wanted in the original show. Watch History of Hibiki for more. Plus we have Woz wanting to celebrate Sogo's birthday as a B-plot that frankly doesn't contribute to much. But look man, I can't hate Team Geo when they're just having fun, and when Hibiki the show is still given a lot of love and care. Okay, there's gonna be a lot to go over, which means you should once again watch History of Hibiki, but Kiriya's story is fantastic in this arc. Even if you don't know anything about Hibiki, which I'm assuming most of you don't, just seeing this character, Kiriya, learning that taking Hibiki's name isn't enough to be the hero he thought he was, is good development, both as a story connecting to Sogo's want of being king, and as a continuation of the original Hibiki show. Todoroki is also here. He was my favorite writer in Hibiki, being a big driving force for Kiriya and Sogo's growth. And, yes I know there's a lot of ands, and Woz has his own characterization to see Sogo as a person, not just the demon overlord. Not just that, but Shirakura wanted to differentiate this from Decade's Hibiki arc by focusing on Kiriya. Kiriya was the key to everything. To top it all off, the progression of Kiriya learning to be a better person to fully become Hibiki, surprisingly, is probably one of my favorite storylines in Geo. It ties so much together, develops characters while continuing their story from the original show, and teaches Team Geo their own lessons. They did it again. An Anniversary Show's Hibiki arc is one of the best in the season. Oh man, I'm actually smiling saying this. I really liked Hibiki's arc in Kamen Rider Geo. So, what do we have next? You know what? The Kiva arc does do a very good job at being a tribute to the original show, because this is just as boring. Okay, so Sogo randomly brings up an old crush on a lady much older than him, and coincidentally, that supposedly same woman becomes another Kiva. See, another tribute to Kiva as how beautiful these suits are on a wasted story. But I have to sympathize with Kiva fans because the only returning actor is one of the arm monsters, and he barely gets any screen time. Even worse for Kiva fans is that this entire arc grinds to a complete halt, and I mean it just stops being entirely relevant. The moment another future writer, but not question mark appears, named Kamen Rider Ginga. Literally the only explanation we get of him from the entire show, and I mean everything considering the side content, staff, and interviews, is Woz saying Ginga is a space-time anomaly. There's your Kiva reference, everyone. I won't go into the main plot details that much because it's really just convoluted. So, to put it simply, another Kiva's user wants to be a queen. She's going after a certain guy out of revenge. The arm monster guy hands Sogo a ride watch just cuz. Kamen Rider Ginga is defeated really fast, so Woz can get a super form. Ginga! Finally! Wow, that looks terrible. So, Woz Ginga was at one point planned to be an enemy for Team Gio to fight against. Not anymore. Ginga appears for a minute within 2 episodes just to be an upgrade. Then Ore kills Sogo's love interest.
Arigato. Kawaii boya.
Wait, is that Yuri? One of the main characters in Kiva? Legit the only good part of that stinky show? And she plays a completely different character? She couldn't make it for the rest of these episodes? Man, this is one of the worst arcs I've ever seen in Kamen Rider. Just plain awful. And I love it. Oh yeah, don't get me wrong, I generally think this is terrible, but there's a reason for that. You know, the time-traveling love triangle, the toys coming out of nowhere, a lack of care for anything outside the A-plot. Toshiki Inoue. After nearly a decade, he came back just to write some effed up arcs for Ryuki and Kiva. Oh, and another Kiva is played by the same actors who was in Kamen Rider G, so there's your Kamen Rider G rep. What a wonderful time, guys. I'm having a blast. I know that sounded like sarcasm, but I'm having a great time. Next is the Kabuto arc. There are 3 ride watches left to gather, and meteors have been heading to Earth. One's carrying worms. Our riders meet another hero who fought the worms long ago, Arata Kagami, Kamen Rider Gatak. Opposing their battle are the Hell Brothers, Yaguruma and Kageyama. Tsukuyomi's powers are showing themselves even more, just like Tsukasa. Hey wait, it's been about 10 episodes since we last saw him. I thought this was supposed to be Decade Season 2, but he barely takes up half of Gio's episode counts. Anyway, I'll rant on that later. Kagami is a member of Zect, people who fight worms. He mentions that Kageyama died a while ago and is being mimicked by a worm, so it's up to them to stop the Hell Brothers. Please stop it, Woz. I get it. It's not even the right reference in this context. God, it's so weird seeing the mostly serious Kabuto characters stand beside this cast. There's also this dark filter that reminds me of Kabuto, and that's just funny, but not on purpose. Huh? Oh, I almost missed this, but Tsukasa takes Tsukuyomi to another time, where we see that she's actually Schwartz's little sister. That's kind of a big drop in a random arc. Oh well, you can probably guess I'm already getting tired of this, so it's not like there's anything that can be worse than that. I hate this arc, man. We start episode 39 with Grand Gio summoning Legend Riders. Just kidding, that's something we're about to see, but this show doesn't know what pacing means. Our real story starts with the Imogen taking over the clock shop. Oh, that's fun. Hey Sogo, aren't you supposed to kinda know these guys? Okay, I know I can't rag on the Hey Gen Forever canonicity like this, but we know it's not what happened here, so let's move on. Team Gio fight against another Dan-O when Kyosuke Kiria arrives. Just kidding, this is Sakurai Yuto, and he's here to stop Sogo from becoming a demon overlord. When Sogo gets all the ride watches, he'll get a grand power. Yeah, we've heard all this before. Meanwhile, Imogen shenanigans happen while fighting another Dan-O. Then Momotaros gives Sogo the Dan-O ride watch, just cuz. You know what that means. Most of this episode is about a civilian of the week, and I don't feel like talking about it. Through some more Civi of the Week shenanigans, Yuto relearns the power of friendship, and Sogo unleashes his full power. With every Legend Rider watch in hand, he transforms into Kamen Rider Grand Gio. Man, I wish I had a cooler way of saying that, but this episode was just so lame. Man, I don't even know if I'll be talking about this suit in another portion, but I really like it. Like, it looks so shiny. I love all the riders on it, and I can't even get hyped for it because it's in Geo. Another Den-O is defeated, and Sogo goes into his final battle against Oma Gio. They seem evenly matched at first, until Woz steps in and it appears that the timeline has altered. Sogo wakes up in a place commemorating Hideyo's first transformation. This still seems like this world is in the year 2019, but everything is run down, and people don't remember him. Gates and Tsukuyomi are against Gio, so it seems like the Timejackers are protecting Sogo. That's right, this is a timeline where Hideo becomes an overlord, as another Gio too. Wow, what great storytelling! A brand new power would have been great here if it wasn't already being taken out easily by these fake writers. Anyway, Tsukasa is here too, and doesn't say anything helpful. Episode 42. Gates attempts to fight, but Sogo refuses to hit back, saying that Gates once promised that if he truly felt evil within Sogo, then he deserves to die. This is genuinely a great moment. Oh, no buts. I think it's amazing. Nothing wrong with it. Tsukuyomi stops their one-sided fight, having Sogo explain that this is a new timeline. Meanwhile, Woz tells Hiryu about how Sogo was an overlord at one point. Interrupting them is Kaito. He's in this world for treasure, and stopping him is Schwartz, who pretty much paved the way for Hiryu to become an overlord in this timeline. Team Gio is back together again, planning to take down Hiryu. Tsukasa is here too. The Timejackers take Tsukuyomi when Schwartz explains that Tsukuyomi really is his sister and part of a royal bloodline. Schwartz is able to awaken someone's time powers and take them away, like he did with Kaito, who I almost forgot was even here. Schwartz has been using Wool and Oda for his grand plan to take the Overlord throne for himself. Tsukuyomi was next in line for power, so Schwartz took away her memory and Timejacker abilities. With that, Team Gio are ready to take on Hiryu and the other riders. Tsukasa is here too. He fights with Kaito, who uses Schwartz given power to stop time, and allows Schwartz to create the Another Decade Ride Watch. Wait, is that another Kuga? I want to know his story. How are you here? Sogo fights off against Hiryu, defeating him with the power of friendship and a gun he found. Although, this was surprisingly yet another step in Schwartz's plan. Soon, he'll become a Demon King and defeat Sogo. That was Arc 3, Grand Time, The New Future, Gio's third arc. I actually kinda liked it, sort of. It felt like a mix of the early arcs giving us some tributes than Gio's own original story. I would say it's a lot better here due to being way more focused on what the show wants to do. Our tribute episodes are mostly good. They connect to our characters in personal ways, and the returning actors are fun choices, except for the Kiva arc. Then Gio's story in this arc is a lot better than previous focus episodes. I did bring up moments between Sogo and his friends when I could, which is the key word, friends. They've shown a lot of growth to this point, pushing each character forward, except maybe Woz, but he's Woz. I also like the complexity brought in with all the time travel in Tsukuyomi's story. I'll be bringing up this arc more later on because for now, we'll be going on a very, very long detour. It's time for all the extra stuff.
While we're in between parts, I can't believe it's been 2 videos and I completely forgot to shill my Discord server. So if you like talking tokusatsu or want to see me post a Naoto GIF or Bernice dancing GIF multiple times throughout the day, you can follow the Discord link below and I'll see you there. Oh man, I love those GIFs. I post them so much. I'm sure it annoys a lot of people. But anyway, let's continue.
Lighter time!
Shinji Kido is woken up alongside other people. They're ready to fight as Kamen Riders. This is a new battle royale in Rider Time Ryuki. Originally pitched as a 15th anniversary project, this got pushed up to be a celebration alongside Gio, and you can kinda tell. A ton of previous Ryuki actors show up, but unfortunately not all due to scheduling issues. Kamen Rider Fam is also replaced by Kamen Rider Abyss for some reason. This doesn't really have anything to do with Gio. Sogo and Gates only show up for like a few seconds near the end to fight another Ryuki. It was kinda smart that who they fought in the actual show was another Ryuga. Anyway, Rider Time Ryuki is a miniseries that takes place around Gio episode 28. I'm only talking about it now cause I feel like it, and it's not like it matters in Gio. I also tell a little bit more of the story and history of Ryuki since it's more appropriate there, and again, Gio barely has anything to do with this. For now, I can say that I enjoyed Rider Time Ryuki a lot. It's very much a Ryuki story written by Toshiki Inui for the modern day, which was the main idea. According to this Kamen Rider Gio DVD, there are ghosts in the school, and Gates has to fight another ghost, who he's scared of now for some reason. This was all a ploy by Sogo and friends to help Gates, stop being scared and go to sleep, I think? Oda and Wool are here too. Kind of. They're not the same characters, but they're the same actors. Anyway, through the power of fear, Gates gets a new power. Huh. Yeah, that's pretty much it. I really got nothing else. It was dumb. Yeah, let's go with that. It was dumb. I guess funnily enough, this is supposed to take place near the end of the show. The director said this was meant to be a heavy contrast to how dark the end of Gio is, considering it's the end of the world and all that. Great, I guess? I still think it was dumb. I won't recommend this one unless you really want to. The suit is pretty neat though. In 1987, Kamen Rider Black aired. It had great reception, hitting a new stride for Kamen Rider. It was well beloved everywhere, especially in Brazil. The dark themes harken back to simpler times, while being a gateway to a newer era. Kamen Rider and Toei were on top of the world, but they were not untouchable. With that red muffler, he's gonna kick evil's asses, and best of all, tomorrow is his birthday. This is Kamen Norida, a parody of the original Kamen Rider, and it was massive. Like, I cannot understate how much this was loved in Japan, and it's funny that this kinda came out of nowhere. There were parodies of Kamen Rider before this, but Kamen Norida was unauthorized, and yet, it was a hit. Airing just a few months before Black RX debuted, Kamen Norida came out swinging, making fun of basically everything that made Kamen Rider, well, Kamen Rider, at least to the general public. The gags were very on the nose, as Takeshi Kinashi, played by Kinashi Noritake, fights the evil organization Joka. It wasn't just gags, but Akichi Kobayashi reprises his role as Tobei Tachibana, accompanied by Ultraman music. And if that wasn't enough, check out the evil monster from the first episode, the Frightening Otter Man. Oh yeah, there's tons of history behind this show, and how it even affected future Kamen Rider projects. But for now, let's jump to 2013. Toei trademarks the name Kamen Norida. Okay, that's enough. Now let's jump to the year 2019. Rejoice as we welcome the new symbol of Reiwa, who welcomes us to the next era, and his name is Kikaider01. Just kidding, that'll never happen. It was a dream Sogo was having. But even worse news, something weird has been happening to Sengoku era folding screens. Gates is appearing on them. The Drive Ride Watch turns on, showing a message from Krim Steinbelt asking for help. Watch History of Kamen Rider Drive for more notes on him. While searching for Steinbelt's treasure, Sogo and Gates get stopped by Shijima Go, Kamen Rider Mach, as well as another mysterious rider. Crim's data and bloodline are disappearing due to timeline shenanigans, so that's why he asked for help. With that, Team Gio traveled to the Sengoku era, 1575. This is Kamen Rider Gio's summer movie, Over Quarter. The Z is silent and not to be confused with the theme song of the same name. Over Quarter is the first movie of the Reiwa era, since the era started on May 1st, 2019, and this movie's official release was July of the same year. Just like when Kamen Rider Black RX aired, it began in one era that continued onto another, but is still considered a Showa rider, the same way Gio is a Heisei rider. Not like the designation matters that much, except for like organization purposes, but anyway. It feels like this movie was going to be a big deal, similar to Heisei Generations Forever. You know, the feeling of the end as well as celebrating the past. Even the slogan once again seems like a grand finale. The final chapter of Heisei Kamen Rider. Break the era, change the future. With a slogan like that, clearly it means we spend the movie in the Sengoku era solving Crim Steinbelt's problem. Oh no, I'm not joking. I'm not even being sarcastic. The movie is kind of just goofing around in the past until the runtime is done. Well, Team Gio meet Clara Steinbelt, have some neat scenes with tons of extras, and encounter a second mystery writer. Then the day is saved and time is restored. Wow, that was a boring movie, but at least it's over. There's still 30 minutes left? Yeah, that was legit half the movie. A previous idea was to go the meta route like Hey Gen Forever did, but Shirakura didn't want to do that with 2 movies in a row, so a big idea this time was to time travel to the past. The translation here says that a time travel story for a battle in the Sengoku era had not been done before, but that has to be a mistranslation, right? There was time travel in Rider plenty of times. Gaim could count as a Sengoku era battle. Plenty of movies took place in the Sengoku era. If you want to be even more literal about it, the entire point of the Hibiku movie was about the Sengoku era. But anyway, now that all the ride watches are collected, Woz summons a throne and calls for Sogo to take his place as king. Sogo steps up, but the throne is already taken. Standing alongside the stranger are people with similar clothing to Woz. This man is Sogo, in all caps like Dio. And these are the Quarters, overseers of time. Our Sogo starts to remember. When Schwartz tested him, Sogo didn't show his real power. That was this Sogo. The revelation makes Gates and Tsukuyomi think maybe they have gone after the wrong Sogo of the Heisei era. Quarter Sogo was getting ready for the Reiwa era by having Sogo collect all the Heisei rider ride watches, while making him think he was meant to be king. The main plan is getting rid of everything born in the Heisei era, including people. Thankfully, that means I'm safe. Wait, when did the Heisei era start again? January 8th, 1989. Oh, I'm not safe. Not safe. During all this, our Sogo is imprisoned. Once there, he meets a modified human who once wore a mask, but was never given the title of Kamen Rider. See, that long detour about Kamen Norida was important after all. This man tells Sogo that even if he wasn't meant to be king, he can still be a hero. Our heroes go forward, Tsukuyomi helping Sogo escape, and Gates taking back the ride watches by putting Woz into a BL moment. Woz attempts to stop Gates, who tells Woz to remember their times with Sogo. As much trouble as Sogo gave them, he also changed them as people. Speaking of which, the two Sogos face off, and Quarter Sogo has his own transformation. Our Sogo is nearly defeated when he remembers wanting to be king, then Oma Gio tells him not to give up. With his resolve returning, Sogo transforms into Gio Oma. Not to be confused with Oma Gio, this Oma is after the Gio despite Oma being an anagram with a specific meaning, so moving it around to the end of Gio Oma kind of changes that a bit, but Then the rest of the Heisei riders arrive. Don't question it. But they're not alone. And that's not even the best part. Sogo says the Heisei writers are living moment to moment. Sure, they're not perfect, but don't call it a mess. This is the Heisei era. With Quarter Sogo defeated, Gates and Tsukuyomi begin to disappear because they only existed in a timeline where there was a demon king. Now our Sogo can decide his own future. Sogo goes home, seeing Gates and Tsukuyomi. How did that happen? Who knows? Truth is stranger than fiction, and no one knows the future. We have to live moment to moment. Throughout my research, and by research I mean just looking at Japanese Wikipedia and having Ferbers do the rest, there was one quote that stood out to me. Not being able to summarize is the summary. Producer Shirakura can be a bit cryptic, but this, I'm not really sure what he's getting at. This next part might also be a weird machine translation. Since the Heisei writers are not limited to Kuga and Gio, the approach was that it would be ugly to continue telling the beautiful lie in the Reiwa era. Yes, it's poetic, and this time I know what they're getting at, but why say it that way? Well, why not? Why not focus more on the time travel aspect when it's already a big element in the main show? Why not try to tell a story about the quarters despite only being in this movie? Why not celebrate the mess that is Heisei? Oh, but it's not a mess. There may be some down parts, but each season is special to someone, and that includes more than the famous parts of history. As writer fans know, Black RX aired into the Heisei era, although Kuga is the official designation for simplicity. What about ZO, Shin, and J? What about the first and the next? What about Amazons? The approach would be ugly if none of these were remembered into the Reiwa era. This consideration is a major reason why I appreciate this movie. Yeah, Heisei Phase 1 and 2 are well beloved, but so is everything else that aired during that time period. Amazons is my favorite Kamen Rider season of all time, and I would have hated it if it was never mentioned during Gio, because it absolutely deserves the spotlight and the talking points when bringing up Heisei Rider. And you know what? The same goes with Kamen Norida. It's important to the history of Kamen Rider, and leaving it in the past as some knockoff parody show would have done it a major disservice. In fact, I'm sure some of you probably don't even know that it actually is Kamen Norida and not Kamen no Rider. It's a play off the actor's name, Norida. It's Kamen Norida, not Kamen no Rider. That's why it's important to learn about these things. One of my favorite moments in Kamen Rider is when all the extra writers show up, including Manga Kuga. Yes, it's friggin' weird to do this in the first place. It makes no friggin' sense, but why not? Why should it make sense? This is their recognition, and I'm happy to see it. So, what do I think about the movie as a movie, though? Yes, the message is fantastic. I absolutely adore what they're going for, and there is so much to enjoy. Gio Oma's transformation, the part where all the writers go into the final forms one at a time, Goal and Krim Steinbelt getting their proper drive tribute, the Quarters, man, the Quarters are probably one of my favorite writer organizations now. And the number one thing I will say is fantastic in both idea and execution is the twist of Quarter Sogo. Man, our Sogo not being the true person destined to be the Demon King is such an amazing idea and recontextualizes so much, it's unreal. In fact, it's not real. This idea of a true Sogo was considered for the show, but Shirakura ultimately passed on it, saying it would have been too complicated. Okay, and why not go through with it? Okay, so just like the previous movie, Over Quarter is non-canon, despite certain elements being brought up in the main show. And you can see how hysterical I'm getting. Isn't it hypocritical of me to say that it shouldn't matter if this is canon or not, because the emotion is real? Yes, and one of the main emotions of this movie is that I was bored. The first half almost put me to sleep. I don't even think it was necessary. And yet, I can't help but to say that the second half is more than worth it for all the reasons I mentioned earlier. A lot of stuff kind of pisses me off, like how Gates and Tsukuyomi supposedly die but come back and the only explanation is Woz saying, "Oops, oh well, lol." Dude, I hate cop-outs like that. And yet, it was charming in its own way. By the end, the canonicity really shouldn't matter, especially if the movie more or less happens anyway, minus certain plot points like Quarter Sogo. The most important part was that my number one main emotion while watching Over Quarter was happiness. And funnily enough, This movie is considered a separate ending to Gio, much like how Ryuki episode final is an alternate finale. And even funnier is that we have a continuation. Another writers have been appearing, but Sogo and Gates aren't sure why. On top of that, they find ride watches for Ichigo and Nigo, meaning there are still some ride watches left for them to find. And to make things even weirder, Tsukuyomi is acting like a queen. Well, more than a queen than she already is. That's because a new Red Woz and this Tsukuyomi are collecting the 7 legendary rider ride watches to help her become a true queen. Well, more than the true queen she already is. This is Kamen Rider Gio, final stage. Yeah, I guess I do go over stage shows permanently at this point. As stated earlier, final stage takes place in the same continuity as Over Quarter, following up on it shortly afterwards. And also stated earlier, everything that happened in the main show also happened in the Over Quarter continuity, as long as we don't think about Heisei Generations forever. I bring up the main show because after the introduction of Red Woz, we see Gates and Sogo gaining a new ally who was formerly a villain, Hiryu, who transforms into Kamen Rider Barlex. Oh, I said that in one take. Barlex. Barlex. Huh. Yes, of course he turns out to be evil, you silly goose. He brainwashed Tsukuyomi and Woz to gain the 7 legendary rider ride watches. It's actually pretty funny that Hiryu decided to use the power of the Showa era to fight them. And we can't forget the stage show exclusives. Gio Woz armor. And Hiryu becomes another Oma Gio. As things start to look bleak, we get some very surprising cameos. Kamen Rider Ichigo, Nigo, and V3 from the first and the next, plus the Amazon riders, who say they're Showa-era riders born into the Heisei era, with Jin saying Gio is Reiwa's Heisei rider. I think it's super funny Alpha and Ichigo the first are the only ones with actual lines because their actors are reprising their roles here. The rest don't say anything outside of grunts. It's really silly. And since this is a continuation of the movie, Sogo doesn't become Oma Gio. Rather, he uses Gio Oma. Although, Oma Gio joins the fight, making this the only time we see these two suits side by side, and it's amazing. Hiryu is defeated, and Sogo tells everyone to have the Heisei era live on towards a Reiwa era. Yeah, it was fun. I say that for basically every stage show, huh? I guess it's difficult to mess up when they know what they are, fun side stories that give us a little more time with our cast. This one was simple enough, and when it comes to Gio, I can applaud it for that. Wait, what? Furbus, if you're listening to this and still editing, can you put the Naoto Chibi doing the dance for no reason? Thank you. I've been meaning to talk about merchandise more in these videos, and I'll definitely be making it a point to bring up the toys as much as I can in the Reiwa era. Getting into Gio, I wasn't the biggest fan of it visually at first. It just looked so silly, and yes, I know how ironic that sounds. I think the better word is that it looks very exaggerated, like Gio's protruding chest and what stands out the most, the katakana on the visors, or in Gates' case, hiragana. As always, these were intentional for Plex's designers. It's a bit of a treat to get a direct interview with Plex's staff, and we have some good insight here. Plex designer Takato Yamashita and Bandai's Masayuki Endo gave a lot of input for Gio. One of them saying that they gave a lot of attention to detail for the clock motif on Gio's helmet and the transformation pose. They bring up a lot of specifics such as brands and banding and the names of clock hands when designing. It's very detailed and way too much for me to go over all of it. But yeah, the detail is admirable. I like how they said the common kanji on the forehead is stylized to look like a clock brand's logo. So we all know Gio is based on a clock, but a secondary motif might be a bit of a surprise. It's a pilot, because he pilots the Timezine, sometimes. Still, that motif might not be super noticeable at first, but it was meant to be seen with the silhouette, and once you do notice, you'll never unnotice his cute little helmet. That said, I'm still not a fan of the main suits. While I appreciate all the work done, there's just something off about Gio, Gates, and Woz. To me, I guess it looks like some parts are too big or too small or don't add to the overall style. And those complaints go double for the ride armors. Like, I do get what they're going for. And a fun production bit was that the base suits were supposed to be pilots for a previous idea, where they piloted robots based on past Kamen Riders, but that was proved to be too expensive. The overly exaggerated armors are remnants of that. In my opinion, the gimmicks on the shoulders look so dumb. I don't think I like any of the armors, except maybe Kuga, and that's only because he doesn't have a big gimmick to put on his shoulders. A couple other armors like O's and Forze don't add their gimmicks to the shoulders either, but they're still protruding out in a terrible way. Even if the gimmicks were absent, I don't think these would be any better, mostly because of all the clashing colors and design choices. The easiest example to bring up is X8's armor. The actual X8 suit was made with the hair and bright colors in mind, but add those to the Geo suit where they weren't meant to be designed there in the first place and only added because hey, they're the iconic X8 elements, it just looks horrendous. Not to mention their hammer arms, which clash even more. Gaim armor might be one of the worst ones for me. I'm so glad they didn't go with the idea of adding swords to the legs. Above the regular armors is the Decade Ride Watch. I do think it's better, but it has similar issues. Although I do like the gimmick changing up for the face, that's so much better. Before anyone says it, no, it's saying final form time does not mean that these other forms are the final ones. That line is referencing the Deca driver when it says final Kamen Ride. And in case anyone is wondering how you're able to see through that helmet, it's covered in acrylic and edited in post. My favorite part about the Decade Ride armor is that it uses O's Tajador, giving yet another reason as to why that's not a final form. As always, I don't bring up weapons cause I just don't feel like it most of the time, but the Decade armor also summons the Hey Saber, and that's really cool. This idea of a ride armor within another ride armor was one thing that went into designing Geo 2. So getting into that, I don't like the base forms or ride armor, but I love Geo 2's design. Yeah, that's pretty much everything I can say about it. Let's go back here a bit so I can bring up something I can talk about. I love the Jiku driver. Oh gosh, that design is so clean and simple. Being able to flip it sounds really dumb at first, but it's so much fun. Along them are my personal favorite rider gimmicks ever, the ride watches. These are incredibly simple. A Kamen Rider's face on a circle, but add some limited playability with his face plates and its amazing jingles, and you get some of the best toys in the franchise. For one, the possibilities are quite literally endless, as basically every Kamen Rider could get a ride watch, and a majority have. Heck, extra forms, side forms, super forms, final forms, and even your mom have a ride watch. And if that wasn't enough, there are these special shiny versions, Gashapon toys that don't have a dial to turn, premium Bandai watches, and some special releases that were voted on by the public. Yes, of course I bought the Poppy ride watch. Why does Scissors have a ride watch? I don't buy as many Toku toys as I used to, but I absolutely had to get some watches, especially of my favorite riders. And hey, that's just the collectible part. The jingles and sounds are some of the best and catchiest ever. In fact, I'd say they're on par, if not better, than what I enjoyed about Double's Gaia Memories. We start with the very short activation sound, a fun standby jingle, then the full sound, which is mainly the Legend Rider's own jingle than the original Geo sound. These jingles are so catchy, just give me a name and I can remember most of the sounds immediately. Geo! Kamen Rider Gates! Bibiru! Forze! And probably everyone's favorite. God, I love those so much. Well, I enjoy them standalone, but one thing I don't like toy-wise is that if you put in 2 ride watches into the Jiku driver, then the first watch's jingle plays in full before going into the second. I get it was difficult enough designing the electronics, especially with the spinning faceplate, but I kinda wish the first jingle only said the activation sound and then the full second jingle. Otherwise, I have no complaints. Each jingle is simply amazing. And finally, circling back to Geo 2, I just love that transforming requires 2 ride watches from a single unit, really dialing into the double aspect, plus both announcers combining into one jingle is the icing on the cake of this amazing suit. And yeah, Woz has all of its own positives, cause I love his equipment too. The Beyond driver is green. And more importantly, yes, everybody knows, every single person who's ever heard this jingle knows, that standby jingle is so catchy, you hear it for like 1 second, then it's in your brain forever. His watches are great too. It's cool that they open up and are reflected off a mirror inside the toy. I do kinda like the announcer, but not as much as the Jiku driver ones, mostly because I do have a limit for the Beyond driver announcer. I can only listen to it so many times. But now getting into the future riders, Their drivers are just a gray Jiku driver with their own gimmicks. There are tons of reasons for this, especially budgetary, but I wish they had unique standalone design belts rather than just being based off the Jiku driver. Although I do like them and their jingles. I actually prefer the Mirai driver jingles over the Mirai watches. With all this talk of toys, we can easily make that into the question of the video. What's your favorite jingle? Mine's quiz from the Mirai driver. Passion, question. Quiz. I love that. If I didn't bring up any other ride watch in this section, then it's because we either didn't get to it, or I just don't have anything to say. Okay, there's gotta be way more I have to talk about. Come on. Yes, you can probably tell I'm holding off on something, but I guess I can't wait anymore. Okay, I've been holding this off long enough. We don't talk about... Oh wait, the music! In going with Sogo's dream of being king, Shirakura mentioned a motif for the music should be based off Indian music, after being inspired by a certain Indian movie. I already really enjoyed the OST, but finally recognizing the musical theme made me appreciate it even more. I feel like I say every later Heisei season has such amazing soundtracks, and this is definitely not going to be any different. Even though Indian theme sounds out there, I do see how it's a perfect fit. This motif doesn't stretch to all the insert themes, but we're starting with Over Quarter by Shuta Sueyoshi of AAA and featuring Issa of The Pump. He also sang Justifies and played Quarter Sogo. King of Time, sung by Sogo's actor So Ukno. Future Guardian, sung by Gates' actor Gaku Oshiya. When the Moon is Full, sung by Tsukuyomi Shieri Ohata, featuring the Kamen Rider girls. Black and White, sung by Woz's actor Kaisuke Watanabe. And finally, Revolutionize, sung by the Time Jackers, played by Rihito Itagaki, Ayaka Kono, and Kentaro Kanasaki. Almost forgot Party by The Pump. It was the theme for Over Quarter. I'm grouping these together because I enjoy them all around the same amount, and mostly because I don't have too much to add aside from I really like the music and I wish more of these were in the show proper. Revolutionize is my least favorite, but I do like the idea of the Time Jackers singing their own insert theme. Although I'm putting this on the lower end, and to put it nicely, I don't think some of these voices fit musically. King of Time is on the lower end too. Over Quarter is great. Yep, all I can say there. When the Moon is Full is my most favorite out of these. This is where I noticed the Indian inspiration the most, and Shieri Ohata's voice is really soothing to me. Some might disagree, especially since most of the actors aren't professional singers or anything, but I think that kind of adds to a genuine feeling in a darker song like this. I didn't even notice the Kamen Rider girls were in the song. They're kind of subtle in the back, and they do add a bit of texture I wouldn't expect out of Kamen Rider. Oh, but we are missing out on a certain song, huh? Next New World by Rider Chips is my #1 favorite Heisei Rider song ever. Yeah, that's it. Overall, I love Gio's soundtrack. I'm saddened I can't play much of it due to copyright, but please search it out and you'll enjoy it too. Shinichiro Shirakura is fairly active on Twitter, and at one point encouraged having Q&As, specifically stating that if any English fans have questions to please ask in their native language. He's answered some normal questions, many of which I bring up during my production research. On February 21st, 2019, a Twitter user asked him about official designations for power-up forms. It was a tame question and actually really interesting, which Shirakura answered with saying that they're officially called Saishu power-ups. That's not the important part. Someone asked Shirakura what designation Trinity has. Shirakura replied with, "You are supposed not to know about Trinity." This was in reference to the yet unreleased form, Kamen Rider Geo Trinity. Some would say that the original question was about Agito Trinity, but some deleted replies later show that's not the case. Others added fuel to the fire, posting the leaked Geo form, and going even further that I won't mention because I don't want to give them any more mention when unrelated. The original user did not mean any harm, as far as we understand, but the damage was done. A lot would point to this incident as the reason why we don't get as many catalog leaks as we used to, but I'm saying otherwise. Toei knows about leaks and have been trying to stop them long before this incident. I know there are some funny jokesters out there that would love to troll more, but please, this fandom is already a niche. Let's be more careful when a producer is willing to share information at all. Insert Power Rangers reference here. There's this great blog going deeper into what they call the Shirakura Paradox. I'll link into the description. I also think Geo Trinity is the worst suit in the show. Episode 44 has another drive go after Wool. Wow, wonder how we have another drive. Anyway, Kamen Rider Aqua visits from the future. Huh? And he has underwear for tomorrow. Another drive is revealed to be Oda, used to clean up loose ends like Wool. Then Schwartz appears and shows his power as another decade. So the Oda we thought was another drive is actually a Roid Mute disguised as her. And I don't know why, just cuz. Oh hey, Daido Katsumi's here. No real reason other than for a cameo, but hey, that's cool. Same with Aqua, he's chillin'. And then Oda kills Wool. White Woz is here too for some reason. Schwartz has been taking people to another world to create Dark Riders. He took away Tsukuyomi's powers, or at least stifled it, and confirmed from before, was using Oda to clean up loose ends. He also trapped Gates in another world, leaving our riders to defeat Schwartz's Dark Riders like Kamen Rider Eternal. Once again, no idea how any of this works, but okay. By using the power-up we're not supposed to know about, civilians are returning to our world and Eternal gives a thumbs up. Schwartz explains his master plan was overseeing Sogo from the start, collecting Dark Rider powers and become the Demon Overlord himself. Team Gio, as well as myself, think about how Schwartz's actions seem random and not exactly piecing together properly. Then Schwartz kills Aqua. Why was he here again? And lastly, for the explanation. Schwartz says he and Sogo cannot coexist with Tsukuyomi, since only one of them can become the Demon Overlord. Cool reference here is that the Skywall from Kamen Rider Build shows up, now that Build's watch is broken, showing off Schwartz's chaotic power. Sogo rushes back to the clock shop, saying Tsukuyomi's real name, Alpina. Aqua said her name before dying, though I'll keep calling her Tsukuyomi. Sogo and Tsukuyomi meet with Tsukasa, asking if he can take them to Tsukuyomi's other timeline. In 2058, a young Schwartz says this world is about to be destroyed, so to save it, he's going to combine all the other worlds into one, a demon king in his own way, to save his own people. Meanwhile, Gates and Woz try to protect the world as more Kamen Rider elements merge into this one. We even get a Chaser cameo. That's neat. Wait, Overquarter is canon? But it was supposed to be an alternate ending, although elements could theoretically be different, like with Heisei for oh look, Tsukasa transforms into Gio. I also want to bring up this whole chase stuff, this whole Kamen Rider Chaser chase stuff. It is so out of nowhere, and he gets this whole like emotional development and chaoticness within himself for like 5 minutes, and then he disappears. This is so weird. Now it's too late. The Grand Geo Ride Watch disappears, and the end of the world is coming. Episode 48, Oma Time. Tsukasa explains that Schwartz gave Sogo time manipulation powers, making him a beacon to merge all the worlds into this one. As their only plan left, Tsukasa says they should destroy the world. They can leave the world behind, but not its people. Sogo goes out to protect his uncle, revealing he's Kamen Rider Gio. His uncle knew he would make for a great king one day. Sogo then travels to 2068 in Oma Gio's timeline, in order to give Tsukuyomi a gift, an attempt to fight the Demon King.
This is that rock quarry in Ibaragi that they used to film those tokusatsu shows, isn't it? This is where they filmed Kamen Rider Zio, you know?
In reality, Oma Gio doesn't intend to defeat Sogo, since they're the same person, although Sogo wanted to sacrifice himself for the sake of a better future. Then Oma Gio makes a revelation. Only he himself has the power to destroy time. Schwartz does not, which is why Schwartz needs Sogo to become Oma Gio. Sogo is sent to the present, as Oma Gio ponders what Sogo will erase and for what reason. Sogo makes it in time to yell for Tsukuyomi to check the gift he left with her in the past, a Ride Watch. The final episode of the Heisei era, episode 49, Apocalypse. Tsukuyomi freezes time and pledges loyalty to Schwartz, making her whole transformation sequence pointless. But anyway, Tsukasa explains that turning Tsukuyomi into a Kamen Rider would save her world. Team Gio was originally going to relocate all the people on this world to her world after becoming a rider, but that plan is failing since she betrayed them. The next day, our remaining riders protect what they can, and as Sogo prepares for his final battle, his uncle fixes up all the ride watches, telling him to ask the others what they want for dinner. Sogo walks into battle with the Grand Gio Ride Watch. The final battle begins. I knew Gaim's final form was Pineapple Arms. Unfortunately, Grand Gio isn't enough. as his rider summons are easily taken down. Sogo is nearly defeated when Gates steps in to take a final hit to protect him. Gates tells Sogo to become Omagio and nearly admits that being Sogo's friend and living with him was... In his anger, Sogo becomes what he was destined to be. But this is what Schwartz wanted, to take Omagio's power. Sogo is able to one-shot even final rider bosses when Schwartz is ready to go back on his own world. Then Tsukuyomi stabs through him, never being on his side. Schwartz kills her. With one more of his friends dead, Sogo finishes off Schwartz. The two worlds merge, and this world has been saved. Now Sogo can truly rule it. But he decides to destroy this world instead. Within Omagio, his future self asks if he's sure that this is the decision he wants to make. Sogo is certain, because without Gates and Tsukuyomi, what's even the point of being king? It's a noble path over conquest, when Sogo asks if Omagio's power is only used for destruction. Before creation can begin, there must be destruction. So Sogo will rewrite history. He'll move towards a new future. September 2018. Sogo goes to school and is asked if he really wants to be king. Gates tells him to wake up and flips him. Then Tsukuyomi flips Gates. Wool and Oda think they're quite silly. In this timeline, Sogo is an ordinary high school student. He dreams of becoming a king, and he might even become a demon overlord. Or maybe not. The future can always change. So, Kamen Rider Geo. It's crazy to me in multiple ways how far we've come in a personal sense. I started this series in my parents' house and using a Rock Band microphone while recording on Windows Movie Maker. Now we reach the end of the Heisei era, the last of Heisei Kamen Rider. It makes me nostalgic, and I wish I could really have more time to look back on this. But we must move forward. And man, I know some viewers were really anticipating this one, not only as a celebration of the era, but also as a celebration of these videos, History of Kamen Rider. This is the 20th or 22nd, if you want to count like Amazons and Dragonite, of these videos. And well, we'll get into that. My opinions tend to fluctuate in between these projects until I actually make a full-on review, making it more of a solid expression that I try not to go back on. It's never 100%, but you know, a video is up forever, so I better be careful of what I say. Especially when I've seen myself get brought up time to time when it comes to Westerners' thoughts about a certain kid show. So, what do I think? What do I think of the last of the Heisei era, Kamen Rider Geo? Let's start with the long answer first. I did constantly bring up things I enjoyed throughout the show. I made sure to write way more positives than negatives this time, kinda to show my thoughts slowly as we went along without being definitive. Now we get to the big points. Most of the main cast are really good. Our trio of writers each stand out as very memorable, with their own fun personalities and banter along with good stories. I wouldn't say amazing stories, but serviceable and good. I like Woz, Gates, and Sogo. End of sentence. Doesn't it feel like someone's missing here? Tsukuyomi? I barely brought her up in this whole show. I feel like she was relegated to an exposition machine for most of it. But note I said felt. What I feel cannot be 100% objective. After all, this is a very opinionated show, a very opinionated video. And Tsukuyomi does actually do quite a lot. She has her own mysterious background as a timejacker. She pushes Sogo to do the right things. It's just that a lot of her character feels like it comes out way too late. Her amnesia and timejacker stuff isn't a big plot point until episode 31. Yeah, sure, we had sprinkles and hints, maybe, earlier, but this is where the big plot points actually come forward. Which, sure, 20-some episodes can be enough time to tell a story. It's just that there's already so much going on that Tsukuyomi's story starts to feel like an afterthought being thrown in there, scrambling to get major focus alongside whatever else is happening, especially alongside those surprise cameos that came out of nowhere. And that was pretty much the case during production. The Jiku driver had a display for Tsukuyomi with no real intent to use it, until Shirakura suggested to leave it in and he would write something around it. Much later. The suit was also made a little last minute, which is why her transformation in the supplementary plan episode 15.5 was cut off. Episode 46 has this great scene of Tsukasa telling Tsukuyomi that she's a lot like him, both in places where they weren't meant to be or even exist. It's powerful. It adds so much to her character while also being pushed by a legend writer. A great scene with great characterization. It's crazy I'm saying all these negatives when, like I said, I actually really like her. Tsukuyomi is a great character with fantastic ideas. She just isn't given a spotlight until it's too late. Gates, I found annoying for a while, mostly around the middle of the show. His motive of wanting to defeat Sogo before becoming the Demon King is a great idea, and luckily Gates sticks to that character, for what I'd say would be too long. Not only that, but he also flip-flops loyalty a lot, and sure, that would make sense for a show this long, and him finding himself out is also a part of the story. Great, there's a structure to it, but it happens like 4 or 5 times, telling me that even this wasn't planned out. During development, Gates was planned to be a direct rival to Sogo, both fighting to be king and collecting more ride watches than the other. Boy, am I glad we didn't get that. While it does sound fine on paper, I feel like it would have been another Hibiki Kiriya situation. I bring this up because I want to say that while the Gates we got isn't that great to me, I find him to be interesting. Not bad, just interesting. He was annoying for a while, though once we got to the scene of him protecting Sogo from Hiryu and the other riders, that's when he clicked with me. Gates is probably the most grounded character in the cast, having lost so much in his time and going back only to find a kind young man in Sogo is definitely a great explanation in why he changes his mind so often. And it's not just that particular scene either, because being paired up with Woz makes for yet another interesting duo, considering Woz betrayed Gates in the Omagio timeline. Then they're forced to at least work together with Sogo. Gates and Woz might not like each other or even trust each other, but there's a bigger threat and tons of branching paths that they both need to get to. It's really, really interesting. Looking back at White Woz and Gates Revive in hindsight, I find myself enjoying it in concept. Those elements were during when I thought Gates was annoying, and I probably wouldn't want to rewatch it, but just thinking about their actions made me realize that I actually like Gates as a character. He has the deepest characterization and story of the whole cast, putting him up there for me. Now, this is gonna sound blasphemous, but I don't have much to say about Woz. He's a fan favorite for being the Rejoice guy. He shares a name with Scott the Woz. He's eccentric. Yes, all that is cool. I won't take away from that. I just like my characters a little more than being a meme. As if you couldn't tell from this 2-hour-long video, I need a little more than a meme. Below all the surface level stuff, Woz is a mystery with no answers, within a story of mysteries that isn't interested in giving answers. It's one reason why, unfortunately, I don't like Woz as a character. He speaks in riddles when he should have given direct answers, and it's made worse when the movie isn't canon, so all his amazing layers and answers aren't part of the main show. But hey, he says EY. Ugh. So yeah, Woz is fun. I'll give him that. He is fun to an extent. I like him enough, but not that much. What you see is what you get, for better and for worse. Which brings me to say even less about Sogo. I've seen so many say Sogo is annoying with his unrealistic dream of being king, which I personally don't think it's that annoying. He's fine. That's as far as I can say. I don't find him terrible, nor amazing. It is cute in how genuine it comes across, but other than that, he's fine. Now the Time Jackers, I wish I could love. Aside from their cool style, their mystery is what intrigued me greatly. At first it seemed like a detriment that we don't really know why they're doing what they do. Then they bring in Tsukasa and all these other writers, becoming so integral to the story that I just couldn't wait to see what they do. Then we find out that Schwartz's grand plan is to become king. Lame. He did bring up that quick line of like wanting to protect his people or something by combining the worlds. I don't know, man. I'm kind of just checked out at this point. We don't know much about these characters, and for once, I think that's a good thing. With how little the show wants to explain, this is a chance to make intriguing villains that goes along with those secret elements. I think it would have been interesting if we never found out what Schwartz wanted. I know a lot of people probably wouldn't enjoy that at all, but I think it could have worked with the story. What we do have are villains starting out cool, then becoming generically lame. Add these thoughts to the side characters, except for Sogo's uncle, he's the best. But I'm mainly talking about Tsukasa and Kaito. Can I just say the whole Decade Season 2 joke was funny while the show was airing, but then it got overblown and feels like it became something that clearly isn't here if you watch the show? You might think I'm crazy for this, but I did the math. Tsukasa appears in 17 out of Gio's 49 episodes, not counting mention of his name or archive footage. This is Tsukasa in the flesh. His own show was 31 episodes, so he appears only a tiny bit more than half of that. If you just want to look at episode count, he's in about 34% of the show. That's barely 1/3 of Gio, but I didn't stop there. I counted every frame he was in, including reaction shots. To be more generous, I even counted this gray blur that no sane person would take note of, but I did. Yes, to be even more generous, I also counted his in-suit appearances. And if the percentage of his episode count was already this short, his actual on-screen time is pitiful. So when I say he was barely in the show, I mean I did the math and can confidently say Tsukasa Kadoya, Kamen Rider Decade, was barely in the show. Daiki Kaito even less. Oh, but Marcosatsu, he may have short screen time, but his presence is what's important. Okay, I don't think his presence is that great either. In his own show, Tsukasa was a smug jerk with a big heart. His character is one reason why he's one of my favorite writers, seemingly one step ahead and having people play into his plan. But here, he's just some smug a-hole for the sake of being a smug a-hole. He even says he only has a concept of a plan, which could have been taken sarcastically, though with how he's been, I don't feel like that's the case. Oh, but Tsukasa has a gun, which makes him cool, right? To me, not at all. Like, you could add a lot of screen time and give him a bigger presence, but his contribution still wouldn't feel needed. He was there during the bus incident, then he helps fight against Schwartz. That's nice. I did like him being here, but it didn't feel like Tsukasa the character was here. And no, I don't mean it in an alternate timeline way. Kaito was barely here too. It's crazy that I only talked about the characters when I think the overall story is even worse. I'm not going to say that nothing made sense or that nothing happened, because things do happen. Things are explained, just not well. Hence why I said, oh, this doesn't make sense in earlier parts. The Legend Rider cameos don't feel impactful to me. The characters are pushed into one-note paths that don't give them time to grow until it's too late. And I'm not supposed to take any of this seriously because that's quote-unquote the point? I've heard this so much. Turn your brain off and just enjoy the glub shittos. Sogo wants to be king? That's so unrealistic, but that's also the point of the story and character. The story is messy? That's supposedly the point. This is a show meant for children. Why make a 2-hour-long video about something that's supposed to be a fun celebration, flaws and all? Supposedly, that's the point. Well, it's a cop-out answer. And unfortunately, it can be a good answer. When the phrase, quote-unquote, don't think about it is said at every corner of the show, including its movies and specials, then it really should be hammered home how the writers and producers just want to tell a fun story. If you don't want to accept that's the point as an answer, then anything beyond that is just up to you. A theme in over a quarter is the heart that Kamen Rider brings, even if it has major flaws. Yes, the show has massive flaws that I took so long to critique, but more importantly, I had fun. I enjoyed Kamen Rider Gio. The show knows it's not going to be a deep dark season that Heisei Phase 1 fans are going to fawn over. It's not trying to be, so why not? Who would win in a fight, Iron Man or Batman? Whoever the scriptwriter wants to win. Why didn't Rose make room for Jack during Titanic? because it wouldn't work for the story's emotional moment. Where did Tsukasa get the Neo Deca driver? We weren't told because the writer didn't want us to know in the moment. It's all in the focus of what the writers want, as well as what sells toys for Bandai. And when we get to that point, the story is fiction. And I wouldn't even say it's good. And of course, it's not immune to critique, but the emotions felt during all of it was real. Sogo, Gates, Tsukuyomi, Woz, I really liked them. They met characters I fell in love with while making these videos. I was happy that Hajime and Kenzaki had a bright ending. It felt great seeing Sakurai Yuto again. Every laugh, every smile, every moment to learn. It was great going on a journey with them. And Sogo's journey of becoming king was fun. The ending where Sogo reset the timeline, man, I didn't like it, but I understood. The story was still told. The characters still went through this adventure, and Shirakura put it best. It's a happy ending in which the Heisei writers get their own, but it's up for the viewers to decide how to interpret it. Yet another cop-out answer, but I understand. I didn't want it to be reset because, by the end, I started to care about Kamen Rider Gyo. It's now my least favorite Heisei Kamen Rider season, even below Kiva, but I had fun. These are more than just stories. They're legacies that I love. I love Kamen Rider. In the beginning, we see Gates fighting Omagio, but Gates has a ride watch we've never seen before. Just kidding, it was a dream. We really start with Sogo getting ready for high school, where he meets up with his friends Tsukuyomi, Gates, Oda, and Wool. Then Gates runs into White Woz, who hands him a ride watch. Welcome to Kamen Rider Gyo, next time, Geiz Majesty. This follows up the show in the same reset timeline. This is also the part where I bring up production notes and such, but I got nothing. Okay, moving on. Gates hurts himself during a judo tournament and gets sent to a hospital. Daiki Kaito is here too. When Gates gets attacked outside the hospital, White Woz hands him a Jiku driver and ride watch. Luckily, Gates' doctor is a Kamen Rider. Being in high school, our cast's main dilemma is figuring out what to do with their future careers. Tsukuyomi wants to be a doctor, Sogo still wants to be king, despite this being a reset timeline, and Gates is looking to get into professional judo somehow. But after being hospitalized, Gates starts losing hope. Through some other fun circumstances driven by Oda and Wool, they say they can get Gates to become a police officer. Oda even has some connections to a certain someone. Gates meets Teruri Ryu, Kamen Rider Axel. Later, Gates gets attacked again. Then White Woz finally explains that in another timeline, Gates was a savior trying to defeat Sogo. Kusaka is here too. Oh wow, I'm actually really happy they do this because Kusaka's past cameos don't acknowledge that this was one of his main quirks. This is also his only scene, why is he here? After another fight, Gates remembers that he was once a Kamen Rider and transforms. White Woz rejoices and becomes another D-End. Neat. Kaito finally meets up with Gates, saying that the another D-End ride watch was stolen, so he's been working with Black Woz to get it back. With everyone together, Black Woz hands them all their powers and they transform. Although, I don't think they get their memories back since this is another timeline. That's awkward. At least Tsukuyomi gets a single fight scene. Their next battle is against White Woz as another D-End, and Kaito gives Gates a brand new toy. The day is saved and Black Woz eats White Woz. I said that with a completely straight face. I just don't question it at this point. Gates decides he wants to become a savior alongside Sogo becoming a king. And that's it. What am I even supposed to say about this? I didn't like the movie, I think, question mark. Yes, it's cool that we got a continuation into the reset timeline. Yes, the cameos are neat. If I still have to question why they're even here. Yes, Geiz Majesty's jingle and suit are cool. The rest, I have no idea. I wasn't bored, but I also wasn't all that entertained. While I was watching with Furbus and Kentaro and Dawn, I was basically complaining about everything, and now that I have time to think about it, I guess I'm purely ambivalent to the movie. I think, question mark. Yeah, no production info, no fun story to bring up. I don't even think I have anything to address here. Literally, the only thing I can think of outside of the Geiz Majesty transformation is Sogo and Gates and Tsukuyomi's running joke of wherever Gates goes, he's like, "Why are you guys here?" And then Sogo says, "Because I'm your best friend." And Tsukuyomi says, "Because I'm your friend." That is adorable. I love jokes like that. It is fantastic. That's legit the only thing I can even think about talking about. This movie is a movie. Thanks, Furbus.
Complete 21.
Sogo and a few others wake up on a mysterious island. They're introduced to a jester who wants them to play a game. However, the loser is killed by another Ryuki. After more deaths, Tsukasa appears and says hello to Yusuke Onodera. This is Kamen Rider Decade vs. Gio. I got nothing else to say. Tsukasa says this place exists on the edge of space-time, and the person who put them all here is the real Sogo. It's basically said that everyone here comes from other worlds, which explains the cameos. Aside from Sogo, Tsukasa, Yusuke, Oda, and Wool, and a bearded Schwartz, the others are previous actors such as Metal Yoshida, who was Kamen Rider Bravo, Mora Murika, who had tons of minor roles in past Rider seasons, and Rena Takeda, who was part of the main cast in Amazons. The killing game continues to be played when everything is revealed. This Yusuke is Yusuke Onodera, but not the version we know. This is just an evil parallel version. Then Narutaki shows up, Omagio kills Yusuke, and this Sogo turns out to be a robot. Huh? We get a neat fight scene with the rest of the Decade Riders as they go against Omagio. However, Omagio blows everything up, leading us into Gio vs. Decade. Invest from Gaim's world starts attacking students when multiple Sogos rescue him. Unfortunately, some students had to be left to die. This school is in a wasteland surrounded by monsters, but it's not the only school out here, since Sogos keep appearing and eventually meet up. Unfortunately for them, Tsukasa is hunting down all Tokiwa Sogos. Tsukasa says he's been killing off Sogos in order to find the real one and stop him from becoming Omagio. Tsukuyomi's had this side story the whole time where she finds a boy who turns out to be the real Sogo. I know that was a lot to take in a single sentence, but it makes sense if you actually watch this. Just like how Wool sacrifices himself for Sogo. Makes way more sense in context. Wait, what? Where did that come from?
Complete 21.
Oh well, I'm not going to question it further. We also get another on-screen Omagio transformation. Neat. During their battle against Omagio, Tsukasa hands Sogo a Saber Ride Watch. Again, there was context within the specials.
Saber.
And so, with the power of friendship and premium Bandai exclusives, Omagio is defeated. He's like so obviously dead, like for realsies, guys. He blew up. He is so dead. Oh yeah, same with Tsukasa. He's obviously so dead, guys. Like for realsies. No way he's gonna come back from being turned into an Adobe After Effects particle preset. Yeah, not like his own movie showed him coming back from the great beyond. Totally. Yep, so dead. Then the world returns to normal. Kind of. Wow, I got nothing else to add here. I really liked Decade vs. Gio. I thought that was a really neat concept. Gio vs. Decade just gave me the whole like WTF face for like all of it. Yeah. Okay, I think that's it. Cool.
I thought of so many ways I could end this video. I thought of really small ways, like ending it abruptly right after Gio versus Decade. I would think it's very funny, and it just goes to the next part of the. So I'll see you next time. I also thought of other big ways. I asked you guys to give your thanks, and being the unprofessional guy I am, I lost like all of them. And then I thought of other bigger ways to end this. I thought of a way to like look back at all the other videos that I worked on, but I think the best way for me to end it personally is to be as personal as I can with you guys. I believe this is the 23rd History of Kamen Rider video that I worked on specifically for the Heisei era. I worked on a ton of other long-form video essay types. Recently, I worked on Super Sentai and other tokusatsu videos where I just talk about the story with no research, and then my review at the end, which isn't very long, but those have all also done very well. But History of Kamen Rider, I always put as much work as I possibly can. I wouldn't say all of it, because even here I've been cutting a lot of corners, as you can tell. And still, I do put a lot more work than you realize. It's not just looking at a wiki and then writing it all down as a summary. I also have other writers and editors. This is the first History of Kamen Rider, actually, where I had a big collaborative help with Lady Cass and Furbus, and they have been amazing. This video probably wouldn't be done at all on the time I wanted if it wasn't without them. And I still put all my thoughts that I can, that I want to, I still put them out there. I still put all the work that I'd be happy with. I still put it all out there. And of course, none of this would be possible without you guys. From humble beginnings at my parents' house, talking into a Rock Band microphone and using Windows Movie Maker, to this, to the finale of Heisei Rider. I've seen other people try to make videos like this, but most of them were very short and were very basic. There's nothing wrong with that, of course. But me, I try to make things big. That's why every single Kamen Rider, History of Kamen Rider video are like an hour long, 2 hours long. Some are reaching nearly 3 hours long, and some are 30 minutes long. But even those shorter ones, I still put as much as I can into them. And even beyond that, especially with the channel as a whole, now that I have a whole team, now that I have friends that collab with me literally every week, I have the Tomkatsu crew with Keza and Thomas. I have people I could call my best friends that I actually met in real life. I've met a lot of Toei people and Tsuburaya people, and it's been really cool. Like, I've actually been sent stuff because I'm a super fan that works on this stuff. I've met you guys at like cons, and it makes me so happy. Like, I still feel very, very humbled. Like, even though we're nearing 100,000 subs, which I never thought would ever happen, I always thought that was just a pipe dream that I would have like in my old bedroom. But here I am with my Kamen Rider saber sword, my full size Kamen Rider saber sword, and all these Toku stuff, and it's been such a fun ride, and I can't thank you guys enough for giving me this opportunity to talk about my weird opinions on these shows. These opinions that I know a lot of you don't agree with, but are still willing to listen to. And this format that started out as a Linkara ripoff that grew into something more me. And actually, that's the biggest point I wanted to bring up at the very end, was that this grew, it evolved into something more different than what Linkara does. This is a Marcosatsu video. It's a Team Satsu collaboration video. It's the work of so many people putting this together for you guys. This 2.5 hour long video of Gio, of a show that I don't like whatsoever, and we still put this much work into it, it still means a lot to me. And that's why everything after Heisei, and even when we go into the Showa era, it'll be legacy of Kamen Rider, because it's its own thing. It's not just the history, it's the legacy of these shows that I love, of the series that I'm so passionate about. That's why I do all this, because I love this series. I love Kamen Rider. I love it so much. And I love Tokusatsu as a whole. It's not just Kamen Rider. Kamen Rider will be my number one favorite, like pretty much no matter what happens. But I just love Tokusatsu. I love men in colored spandex fighting rubber monsters. I love kaiju. I love Ultraman. I love the hope and stories and the characters and everything. And I just love it so much. And that's how I want to end this. A very, very, very big, heartfelt thank you for watching History of Heisei Kamen Rider. So, with all that being said,
join me next time as we enter a new era. We'll jump to the sky to turn into a rider kick with Kamen Rider 01.
あ、いや、牙の音やだったらすっごい嫌だなって。何言ってんだお前。